The names and the languages of the Greeks from antiquity to modern times. This is a three-part series. In the first part, we will discuss about the Greek identity, the Greek language, and its prehistory. What makes one a Greek or a Hellene? Is it citizenship in the modern Republic of Greece, or perhaps speaking the Greek language? Or is it practicing the Orthodox Christian religion? Should Greekness rather have to be proven by special DNA testing, which excitingly is available in our times? Or is it a combination of the above characteristics that are required to prove someone as a Greek? Defining a Greek is not as clear-cut as one may think. Of course, if one speaks Greek, is an Orthodox Christian, a citizen of the Republic of Greece, and all his ancestors have always been called Greek, then the answer is easy. However, is a Muslim, Turkish speaker, and Greek citizen of Thrace, Greece, indeed Greek? Should a Greek speaker, Muslim by religion from Trebizond, Turkey, and descendant of ancient Greeks be considered a Greek? How about a Greek speaker, Orthodox Christian and citizen of Turkey? How about a Turkic speaker, Orthodox Christian of Cappadocia, Turkey? Or an Arabic speaker, Orthodox Christian of the Patriarchate of Jerusalem, an Israeli citizen? There are Greek speakers who are Catholic Christians in Calabria, Italy, and Greek speakers, Catholic Christians in Sotirios Island in Greece. Which of those are considered Greek? From antiquity to modern times, Greeks have self-identified using different names. Neighboring nations have also used a variety of different names to identify the Greeks. In order to better understand our topic, we will have to go through a brief review of Greek history through ancient, medieval, and modern times, and to analyze the factors and the mechanisms which made the Greek language evolve through these periods. The Greek language is spoken today by 14 million people. The Greek language has been extremely influential in the development of other languages, especially European languages. It is spoken in Greece, Cyprus, by minorities in Turkey, Italy, Albania, and Russia, and also by the Greek diaspora throughout the world. At least 15% of English vocabulary derives from Greek words. Additionally, many of the endings used in the English language are borrowed from the Greek language. One of the major reasons that so many Greek words have been used by the English and other European languages is the flexibility of Greek words. For example, the Greek words for ear, nose, throat, and word have endings that allow these words to attach to one another and create a compound word such as otorhinolaryngology. The Greek language is an Indo-European language. Indo-European is a group of languages that mainly exist in Europe, but also in Persia and India. It includes Celtic, Germanic, Romance, Hellenic, Balto-Slavic, Albanian, Armenian, and Indo-Iranian branches. Indo-European languages not only share common vocabulary roots, but also share a similar structure and grammar that is different from other language families. For example, in this slide, we can see how the Proto-Indo-European word for number 4 has evolved in the various Indo-European languages. Similarly, the Proto-Indo-European word for mother in the various Indo-European languages today. The modern Greek language is called Demotic Greek or Romaic Greek and has evolved from the ancient Greek language, which may have started deep in the Old Stone Age, sometime prior to 7000 BC. However, the oldest archaeological evidence of written Greek is from the Bronze Age or 1450 BC in linear B script on clay tablets discovered in Messenia, Greece. There are other modern dialects of Greek, such as Cretan in Crete, Ceconian in the Peloponnese, Cypriot in Cyprus, Pontic in northern Turkey, Cappadocian in central Turkey, and Calabrian Greco in southern Italy. In order to understand Greek prehistory and the roots of the Greek language, we need to see it in the context of the prehistory of Europe and the Near East. Y chromosome DNA studies have immensely propelled our knowledge related to people migrations during prehistoric times. Y-DNA tests are used in genealogic studies to explore a man's direct father's line ancestry. That is because the Y chromosome, just like the fatherly surname, passes down unchanged from father to son. During the Paleolithic, or Old Stone Age, prior to 7000 BC, Europe was inhabited by hunter-gatherers. The majority of samples from Old Stone Age men throughout Europe indicate that most shared the same Y-DNA belonging to haplogroup I. During the New Stone Age, or Neolithic, when farming spread across Europe after 7000 BC, European male Y-DNA changed to new different haplogroups, specifically G, J2, and E. This suggests that the farming revolution was introduced in Europe by the mass migration of a new people who were farmers from Anatolia, because that is where those haplogroups originated from. During the Bronze Age, from 3000 to 1000 BC, there is yet a new turnover of male Y-DNA in Europe. A mass migration of nomad newcomers from the Asian steppes carried the R1b haplogroup to Western Europe, where it established a new majority through the extinction and replacement of the previous Neolithic men. In Eastern Europe, the majority Y-DNA became R1a, also carried by the Eurasian nomads. Most modern Europeans are descended from these Bronze Age nomads from the Asian steppes. The exception was certain areas of Europe where this replacement of Neolithic Y-DNA haplogroups by the new Asian steppe R haplogroups did not occur. Such areas were Scandinavia and the southeastern Mediterranean. In Scandinavia and the northern Balkans, Paleolithic Y-DNA I1 or I2 continued to predominate, whereas in Greece, southern Italy, and the Mediterranean islands, the Neolithic haplogroups J and E continued as majority. This suggests that in the Greek world, the ancestry is mainly from Neolithic farmers of Anatolian origin, and to a much lesser degree from Paleolithic hunter-gatherers or Eurasian northern steppe nomads. Most modern Europeans have a mixed ancestry from the mentioned three major populations that entered Europe during prehistoric times. Number one, the Paleolithic hunter-gatherers who likely came to Europe from the Middle East more than 30,000 years ago and carried Y-DNA I. Number two, the Neolithic farmers who came from Anatolia about 8,000 years ago and carried Y-DNA E, G, and J. And number three, the North Eurasian nomads who likely came from the Siberian steppes during the Bronze Age and carried Y-DNA R1. The modern European nations carry Y-DNA from the above three migration sources in varying degrees. For example, Estonian and Scandinavian men have a high proportion of Y-DNA I, which is of Paleolithic ancestry. Western Europeans, and especially Irish men, have Y-DNA which is mostly R1b, suggesting significant Eurasian steppe ancestry. Finally, Greeks, Albanians, Bulgarians, Southern Italians, and Southern French have mostly Y-DNA of Neolithic Anatolian origin, that is Y-DNA E, G, and J. There are three theories that attempt to explain when and how the Indo-European languages entered Europe. Interestingly, each one of these theories seems to be affiliated with one of the mentioned three migration sources into Europe. First, the Kurgan hypothesis suggests that the Indo-European languages were first introduced into Europe by the steppe nomads during the Bronze Age, claiming that most modern Western and Eastern Europeans carry those nomads' Y-DNA, R1b and R1a. It also claims a common vocabulary related to wheeled vehicles across most Indo-European languages. However, this theory does not explain very well the use of the Greek language by Bronze Age Mycenaean Greeks, who carried a predominantly Anatolian farmer ancestry, as indicated by their high proportion of J2 and E haplogroups. Second, the Anatolian hypothesis suggests that the Indo-European languages were introduced into Europe by the Anatolian farmer pioneers during the Neolithic. In Greece, these Neolithic farmers were known as the Pelasgians and the Minoans. The Pelasgians were a major part of the ancestry of the Mycenaean Greeks. However, there is linguistic evidence that the Pelasgian and Minoan languages, although possibly Anatolian Indo-European, were almost certainly not Greek. Therefore, the Pelasgian Anatolian farmers were not the ones to bring the Greek language to Greece, and the Anatolian hypothesis fails to explain the source of the Greek language. So, if the Mycenaean Greeks got their genes from their Anatolian ancestors, but not their Greek language from them, what is the source of the Greek language? The third theory of Paleolithic continuity suggests that Indo-European languages pre-existed in Paleolithic Europe prior to the influx of Neolithic farmers or Bronze Age steppe nomads. Recent linguistic studies indicate that the Pelasgian words in the Ionian and Aeolian Greek dialects likely represent a superstratum and not a substratum as previously thought. That means that the Greek language should have been present in Greece since the Paleolithic and prior to the arrival of the Neolithic farmers around 7000 BC. The only major migration wave into Greece after the Paleolithic were the Anatolian, Pelasgians, and Minoans, who spoke languages different than Greek. Interestingly, the Ionian, Aeolian, and Arcadian dialects spoken by the Mycenaeans have a strong influence from the Pelasgian language, which makes sense considering the Pelasgian Anatolian ancestry of Mycenaeans. On the other hand, the Dorian dialect, which originated in northwestern Greece outside the Mycenaean world, is a more primitive form of Greek, without signs of a Pelasgian superstratum. These findings may suggest that Paleolithic Greeks may have spoken a primitive form of the Dorian dialect. When the Anatolian Pelasgians migrated to southeastern Greece, they mixed with the Greeks. A genetic turnover with predominance of Anatolian male Y DNA occurred. However, the Greek language prevailed over the Pelasgian language but underwent an evolution into the Aeolian, Ionian, and Arcadian dialects spoken by the Mycenaeans and Classic Greeks. In summary, Greece has been inhabited probably since the Old Stone Age or Paleolithic period. During this time, from 30,000 BC to 7,000 BC, the inhabitants of Greece were hunter-gatherers. Combination of archaeological, linguistic, and genetic studies suggest that the Greek language may be an indigenous language that likely started being spoken during the Paleolithic. The Neolithic period or New Stone Age in Greece started around 7000 BC with a massive migration of farming pioneers from neighboring Anatolia to southeastern Greece. These are known as the Pelasgians. They spoke a different non-Greek language. They intermarried with the indigenous Greek-speaking hunters, and they created a common farming culture. The new Pelasgian language influenced the development of Greek, but eventually the Greek language was the one that prevailed. The Pelasgian traces are still obvious in the Greek language to this day. During the Neolithic period, the Greeks were organized in small settlements. The Neolithic age was followed by the Bronze Age, during which people discovered how to create hard bronze tools for mixing two soft metals, copper and tin. The Bronze Age ran during the second millennium BC in Greece. The Minoan civilization in Crete is a clearly Pelasgian culture that spoke a non-Greek but likely Indo-European language. It used a linear A script that has been quite difficult to decipher. During the Bronze Age, another culture, the Mycenaean culture, developed in mainland Greece. It is the world of the heroes, Perseus, Achilles, and Odysseus, known from Greek mythology. The Mycenaean culture was a Greek-speaking culture developed by the immediate descendants of the mixture of Greek Old Stone Age hunters and Anatolian New Stone Age farmers. The Mycenaean Greeks spoke three different Greek dialects: Arcadian and Ionian in southern Greece, Arcadian in Cyprus, and the Aeolian dialect in central Greece. They wrote in linear B script. The Mycenaean Greeks called themselves Achaeans. They were organized in allied city-states. They had great palaces. The Mycenaean civilization collapsed suddenly around 1100 BC, a little while after the Trojan War. The ancient Greek historians of the classic period claimed that their Mycenaean ancestors had their roots in Anatolia. This has now been confirmed by recent Y-DNA genetic studies. The collapse of the Mycenaean culture around 1100 BC was followed by the ancient Dark Ages, called as such due to a lack of inscriptions from this time period. During this time, the old palaces and cities were abandoned. The presence of smaller and fewer settlements suggests famine and depopulation. This is also the time of the Dorian descent. The Dorians were a more primitive Greek-speaking tribe, descendants of indigenous Old Stone Age hunters inhabiting the mountainous northwestern Greece. They expanded to southeastern Greece, filling the void of the Mycenaean collapse. They occupied the southeastern Peloponnese, displacing its prior Mycenaean inhabitants to the northern Peloponnese. They also occupied Crete. Towards the end of the Dark Ages, a major wave of colonization out of Greece started. At least 30 Greek cities created numerous new colonies throughout the Mediterranean, especially in Anatolia, the Black Sea, Libya, Italy, southern France, and Spain. Please watch the second part of our series where we discuss about the dialects and the evolution of the Greek language during the ancient historical period.